And
Okay.
so they snatched it away from her. I mean, it's like, you got enough problems with churches. You got housewives that want to burn it. And so they snatched it away, took it back to Scotland, and there it stayed. All right. And the reason why it was in London was that they had been actually in the process of updating it from Old English, like we see in Shakespearean plays, to the English of that time, the Queen's English. In our edition, it is still the Queen's English. The only difference is we have changed grammar and punctuation to the Chicago style book so that it's just more readable for people today. But the exact verbiage is word for word exactly the same. And there are very specific prophecies in the Kolbrin Bible. Two of them dealt with predicting the fall of the Soviet Empire, and two was the rise of radical Islam. And the Kolbrin says, the way that Kolbrin predicted the fall of the Soviet Union was it said a mighty empire with the largest naval fleet in the world, like an apple, will be rotten at the core and collapse suddenly. And that's how the ancients described it.
Okay.
Now, here's a fact. When the Soviet Union fell, it in fact had the largest navy in the world, period. Everybody thinks the United States has the largest navy because we see our carriers, and they're big, the floating mountains of airports, right? But the fact was that the Soviets had a different naval strategy. Their naval strategy was to use submarines and missile cruisers. And that was their emphasis. And they had a massive fleet of surface ships and submarines, and their fleet was a third larger than the American fleet. In fact, it was probably larger than all of the world's navies put together. And it, just like an apple rotten at the core, it collapsed. Now, how did the ancient Egyptians, and I'm talking about these prophecies date back to, some 3,600 years. What they said about Islam was they said a faith will rise up. It will preach peace, but bring war to the four corners of the world. Now, Christianity professes love. Judaism professes life. Islam professes peace. And radical Islam has indeed brought war to the four corners of the world. And they also predicted that women, Islamic women, would begin to push back, if you will, revolt against this. And what are we seeing? We're seeing in Islam, there's a trend. Women are stepping up and they're wanting more of a voice. There's more power. So a lot of the things that we're seeing today are harbinger signs that were predicted millennia ago. And they roll out. It's not where you have to say, okay, well, this prediction is, it's 90% except for this little thing we can't figure over here. No, it's a dead hit. It's a dead hit. A nation with the largest navy in the world just folds its tent. Boy, that's the Soviet Union. Bada bing. Now, when that happened, around this time, you're talking about 91. Well, the internet is also really starting to come into its own. The internet for these ancient texts like the Kolbrin Bible, but also think about it. In the last millennium, or in the last century, how often do we talk about all these unpublished gospels of the Holy Bible?
Sure, yeah.
Now we're talking about them, right? Why? Because the internet. One of the things I saw is the power of the internet, and why to me it is so sacred and so beautiful and so necessary to our evolution as a species is one good example. You and I are sitting here talking. It wouldn't be possible without the internet.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay? And you wouldn't have found me without the internet.
That's right.
We look in Tiananmen Square. And what happened in Tiananmen Square was that the Chinese Communist government went in and just brutalized these students who were just saying, hey, how about a little bit of human rights here? And it was a peaceful protest. And they crushed him. And we saw that one fellow that stopped a whole row of tanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
And he that cost him his life eventually. But what I saw as a technologist, because I worked in the computer industry for some 23 years, I saw this. Here you had the most powerful fascist government in the world that could control everything, channel everything, and yet there was this hemorrhage of fax, phone, email, early email systems, and all of this information was squeezing out, and they couldn't stop it. It was like, the dam was busting, and they ran out of thumbs, The net result is, look what's happened to China today. It's the financial juggernaut of the world. If it weren't for China, 2008 would have been the end of America. They went and bought our debt again, right? Jeez. Bail us out. So with this, what happened was that the secret society, the ancient Chaldeans, and they saw that there was now a vehicle to get the information out. And it was one member of the sect that did it. It was not something that they voted to do, because it runs counter to the natural thing of let's be the gatekeepers, control it, And then, of course, once you're a gatekeeper, you get to financially benefit from being a gatekeeper, yada, 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 yada. He went, no. And he started disseminating copies of the Kolbrin. And the first one that showed up was in 1992 in North Island of New Zealand. And but the one that we obtained, we got an electronic copy of it actually from a publisher in India.
Okay.
So it was a widespread dissemination. And because he did it because it was it was an act of love. I mean, I can tell you the Kolbrin Bible is, and so your listeners understand, there's always this issue of copyright. Well, first off, there is no such a thing as an international copyright. And secondly, you cannot copyright a book that's as old as the Bible, period. In America, everyone reads Moby Dick. It's classic America. You know how much money that guy made for writing that book? Bupkis, not a dime.
Yeah.
It didn't become an American classic until the day after copyright protection expired, and then all the publishers jumped on it, and they didn't have to pay royalties, and everybody's cleaned up on it. So, if Herman Melville and his family don't make anything, I mean, now that's pretty recent history, right?
Right.
What we have with the Kolbrin Bible is what we call a compilation copyright. And compilation copyright is, we're just saying, the basic text is public domain. It belongs to you and your listeners just as much as it belongs to me. It is a gift of the ancients to us living today. What we have copyrighted just simply is what we've added as value. We put a citation system, an alphabetical index, a lot of historical information, giving context, some special reports at the back. But if any of the major publishers in the world wanted to pick it up and publish the original text, they could do it the same way they did, with Herman Melville's book. And there's nothing I can do about it. And there's nothing I would want to do about it, because once you're publishing a book like this, once you're bringing it out, you realize that this is an ancient work, and it's here today because countless people, faceless people, gosh knows how many generations, kept the faith. They protected it. They sheltered it. They loved it. They nurtured it because they understood it's important to us. And I stand in awe, not only of those who wrote the original work, but of all of those who have sacrificed, enslaved, without compensation, without recognition, without fame, without, they didn't get to, get to go on the talent shows, nothing. All right. And, I mean, that amazes me, and I want to help, I'm just bringing forward the message, because the Kolbrin not only gives us exquisite accounts of past flybys and describes them